Alrighty then. At what age is midlife?
I think it depends on what statistics you look at. If you look at actuary tables, men live around to the age of 78 statistically, women probably around 82 or 83. So you can do the math, what's in the middle of that. I'm in my mid-50s, I think I'm in midlife.
I don't know, I used to think that midlife was 5 years older than I was, but I'm getting there.
Sounds good. Okay, I want to compliment this person, and you will know who you are and stand tall and be proud because you have the most awesome, excellent handwriting in the world. Why isn't the relationship between hearing and memory loss made known more widely to get those with hearing loss to get aids sooner? Why isn't it known more widely?
What brought this more to the public eye, this has been known for, I would say, close to 20 years that there's a relationship here. But what made it more publicized is the Hopkins study that became published in the real media, in the New York Times and so on. So that's why people started to read about it. Otherwise, it's been in medical literature for a long time. The problem is that not everybody reads the medical literature, and doctors don't read the medical literature. So, so unfortunately, it's been underestimated. But now we know about it, so here we go.
So we've got about 185 people in the room. Tell a friend. Tell them to tell a friend. We'll get the word out. If your parent is a super ager, does that affect your aging brain?
Yes, I think it does. There is some evidence that superaging is largely genetic. You know, it's been generally said that lifestyle can probably get you into the 90s, but to live beyond that, you probably need good genes. So yes, I think superagers to a good degree are genetically blessed, but certainly lifestyle contributes as well.
Here's kind of the other side of the coin, and if someone else wants to kick in, maybe kick in on this side. If your parent has had Alzheimer's or dementia, are you more likely to suffer from these ailments as well? And have there been studies that reinforce that?
I'd like to jump in because I think so much of that is a belief mechanism, and we're learning through epigenetics that gene expression isn't necessarily hereditary. They're finding it's a much smaller percentage, but people believe that, oh my gosh, my father had Alzheimer's, I'm destined to have Alzheimer's, and guess what? If you believe that, it has the potential of developing. So if you change the belief, you can really impact change and not allow that to happen for you.
I think statistically also, what you're saying is true, that a lot of people assume that the degree is higher. The real statistics, I think, are the scary ones, because over the age of 65, your risk of Alzheimer's doubles every 5 years. So at 65, it's 2 to 4%. At 70, it's 4 to 8%. At 75, 8 to 16%. You see where I'm going. When you have a parent or a first-degree relative with that disease, your risk increases 50%. But don't get nervous, because all that means is your risk is the same as anyone else sitting next to you who's 2 or 3 years older than you are. Okay? If you put it in that perspective, not everybody who has a parent with Alzheimer's is going to get Alzheimer's.
If I might make a couple statements, certainly there is a genetic relationship. I think that what we've seen, though, is that it may be multi-genetic, and it may be very complex with regard to the interaction of those genetic factors, and to a great degree, it may relate to some kind of environmental release. For example, you may have a genetic tendency which is released by smoking, for example. So that there is this interaction between environment and genes, as well as interaction with genes with each other. So I think it's really a very complex topic, but certainly if there are multiple members of your family who have had dementia, then unfortunately you are at higher risk.
We had several people ask this question, and I'll frame it up this way. Would someone please explain what the Mediterranean diet is?
The Mediterranean diet, the pure Mediterranean diet is vegetables, whole grains, meats, not meats, fewer meats actually, vegetables, fish, chicken, whole grains, but basically fruits and vegetables, whole grains. And olive oil, you can have your wine.
Oh, we heard it.
When we talk about Mediterranean, that's the only thing people remember is I can drink wine on this diet.
I'd like to jump in though and also point out how important it is to get off sugar. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine, in fact, 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And it absolutely affects brain health, body function, and just by reducing your intake of sugar, do it incrementally, just one step at a time. Eliminate that dessert one day, and the next day you can have the dessert again. But sugar is really a problem for our whole biology, so I really encourage you to mix.
All right. Anyone else want to comment on that one? Okay. Well, we know what the Mediterranean diet is. Now it's up to us to actually adopt it. Okay. Are there any supplements that are good for the brain? Is there Nikki?
Yeah. Some of the nutritional deficiencies that have been linked to cognitive impairment include vitamin D deficiency, folate, B12, so B6. So it's very important that you're screened for those nutritional deficiencies. A lot of physicians some of them are just now beginning to do homocysteine levels, which can place you at risk for cognitive impairment, and the treatment for that is B12, B6s, and folate. So looking at nutritional deficiencies become very important. And you should never be on a supplement that you do not have a deficiency for. You wouldn't believe the pills that we have to throw away or encourage our clients to get rid of. It's amazing what they're taking. And these supplements can be very dangerous, so it's really important to know whether you have deficiencies in them.
So Nikki, if we go for an annual physical and our doctor runs the standard,
will impair coloring, and we know that just a little bit of red wine is good. So I think the standard is for men about the maximum in a day would be like 3 to 4 ounce glasses. For women, it's actually 1. And when you start pushing over that edge on a regular basis, you're actually pushing things in the other direction. So it's a really fine line. I usually tell people to stick with that standard and even maybe take an alcohol holiday, a holiday away from drinking, like 1 or 2 days a week, and kind of keep that as your pattern. The other issue is sometimes with, is people push into maybe more of a memory decline situation, sometimes it's easy to forget how much one has had to drink. And that can become a bit of a problem also. So you just, you know, it's one of those things. We're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about being prudent, and you know, too much of anything is not a good thing.
I do want to mention also that having a glass of wine oftentimes is with friends or family, so it's improving social interaction. But again, it's being mindful about just how much you're consuming.
well, maybe falling into the same category, are there any studies as to how medical marijuana might help with Alzheimer's and or dementia?
That's my knowledge.
Okay. Apparently there's quite a bit of research to be done on that subject. Please define traumatic brain injury. Does this include something like a concussion that could come from an automobile accident or something like that?
Yeah, let me comment. I think this is a little bit complicated. We know that head trauma does contribute to Alzheimer's disease. There's no question of that. There is a different entity out there known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is what we're seeing with football players and hockey players and wrestlers and so on. This is a different disease. It has a different pathology. It is primarily a tau pathology, not a beta amyloid pathology. So that is really appears to be a different disease, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. But there is no question that head trauma does aggravate and increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease as well. So Maybe it needs to be looked at in both contexts, I think.
So we drive safe, we wear our helmet, we ride the bike, we try to make sure we're sure-footed around the house and we don't have falls and things like that, and do everything we can to prevent that type of injury. Is the drug nilvodipone, am I saying that wrong? There you go. Is it approved by the FDA as a high blood pressure medicine?
No, it's used in Europe. So it has never been used or approved for use in the United States. So it's a European blood pressure.
And are there any disadvantages or any problems associated with that?
Well, it's a very low kind of efficacy blood pressure medicine. It's kind of similar to our medication amlodipine that many of you may know, but from what I understand, is less potent than that. But it's not available in the United States.
Okay, and Dr. Brandy, here's another one. What do we think causes the increased risk for the caregivers of dementia patients?
I think a lot of that has to be the stress and the emotional components of managing somebody on a 24/7 basis, and not having time for oneself to having any opportunities to reduce that. So it's theorized that it's really linked to that stress, just like stress is linked to everything else that, whether it be diabetes or cardiovascular disease, it takes its toll. And when you have this chronic situation where there's just never any relief or any break from it, that's the link.
Did anybody have a chance to take a peek next door at that caregiver handbook? If you didn't, it's a really, really cool tool. Peggy, did you want to throw anything on that stress thing?
Well, just in terms of, to reiterate, it's really important that the caregiver take care of themselves. You cannot give to others what isn't flowing through you, and so often, especially women, we're such nurturers, we forget ourselves. And sometimes it's important to be a little selfish, and that's a good word because you've got to take care of you. When you get on an airplane and you have a child with you, they always tell you to put on your oxygen mask first. So it's really important to be mindful about that.
I might just say, and I would really like to emphasize what you said about stress. I think that, that there's good evidence now that stress actually produces hippocampal atrophy, and even early childhood stress will create problems with learning. So I think that we haven't recognized as much as we should have in the past the tremendous deleterious effect of stress on human beings, and I agree that is probably the mechanism behind caregiver stress being a frequent cause of dementia.
Yes, sir, Dr. Watson.
I've never been as excited as being in the Mediterranean than I was today. So thank you all for reassuring me. I've been eating the right diet all my life, and so is my father. My father is all Mediterranean. He still lives in Lebanon, and that's all he eats. He has Alzheimer's, and he has the best hearing of all of us. He hears through walls. So these are two things that we kind of, threw out right there. Stress, I think, is what damaged him. He lived through the Civil War there and lost everything he has ever owned and so on. So it's been a toxic stress for him. But that, I just wanted to emphasize, again, what has been said numerous times. It's a multifactorial thing, and not one of these factors is going to be a sure prescription against the disease.
Well, that's a great personal testimonial, really, to kind of show that contrast. I appreciate that. Second, let me do this one, let me do this one, let me do this one. Why do diabetes, obesity, and hypertension increase the risk of cognitive impairment? Similarly, how does this Mediterranean diet reduce the risk so much?
Well, let me comment on a couple of them. Certainly, one of the things we see is that as people age, there's the coexistence of a number of
when conversing in everyday situations?
It really begins with entering a place of calmness and peace, because when you enter that place, you actually can access so much more. And as I talked about this morning, it can actually increase brain size, brain structure, brain function. But if you're stressed and tense, you're shutting down the natural biological flow, your vital life force energies, you're shutting down the neural pathways. So it's really a matter of finding ways that resonate with you, that work for you, that allow you to enter into a place of calm. You cannot find solutions to problems with the same mind that created the problems. That's what Albert Einstein said. So you need to shift your mind and quiet it enough that you can see the solutions more clearly.
I would also add that having trouble, occasional trouble with word finding is one of the normal signs of aging, unfortunately. And there was a study that was done some time ago where they asked a lot of older adults a series of questions. And then they went back 5 years later and they found out which ones of those people got dementia. And they looked back at the answers to their questions, what medicines they were taking, what activities they were involved in, and which of those questions predicted dementia. There was one question that predicted dementia, and that question was, are you having trouble finding words? But the answer that predicted dementia was no. So if you don't notice you're having trouble finding words, you may